The whole entire season's a chess match because of how much technology there is. Pitchers are able to grasp so much quicker what the hitter is handling and how to not throw them that. When I was in college, that wasn't a thing.
That's Sal Frelick, who's currently making waves in the big leagues as an outfielder for the Milwaukee Brewers. Sal is a pure athlete, growing up playing every sport he could. He even tried to play two at Boston College before going all in on baseball.
I learned so much from being in a huddle Friday night in football to being on a power play in hockey to being in the box. You can take things from different sports and apply them to different ones. It's playing multiple sports, being coachable, being a good teammate, like stuff like that, going out and just competing. That's how you turn heads.
In this episode, Sal joins Aman Loomba, SVP of Product at GameChanger, and Alex Trezza, Baseball Market Manager at GameChanger, for a deep dive into what it really takes to reach the big leagues. He shares how a multi-sport foundation, strong team culture, and actually learning how to use technology and data shaped his path. Plus, he offers practical advice for young players and their parents on how to grow, adapt, and succeed in today's game. This is Athletic Intelligence from GameChanger, a show where we go deep inside the world of baseball and softball, uncovering the tech that's shaping the game.
I first met Sal when I was the associate head coach at Boston College. He was one of those rare guys who just got after it. I mean, no matter what, he showed up ready to compete and give it his all. Fast forward now to 2025, and he's starting in the outfield for the Milwaukee Brewers, living the dream at the highest level of the game. But that kind of rise doesn't just happen overnight. That foundation gets built way before draft day. So we're rewinding the clock back to where Sal's love of sport began.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I can remember, sports was kind of what my life revolved around. Just from a young age, I have an older brother and a younger sister. We're all 13 months apart, so we're all really close. And it was kind of just like come home from school, get your homework done, and just go outside. And we were always doing something. And I think that was kind of maybe instilled in us from our parents. Every season was something different. Playing as many sports as you could, and that was fun to me and my siblings and my friends. And I met a lot of my friends that I'm still friends with today. I really do think a lot of my life, especially growing up, has evolved around youth sports, and that kind of carried its way into middle school and high school, where I continued to play multiple sports, and before eventually landing at BC and just playing baseball.
I want to stop on this for a second. And coaching a long time, multi-sport athletes. That's what we recruited, right? Especially at BC, and you're a great example of that. But talk about how playing multiple sports helped you to get you where you are today, and why it's made you successful.
It was never even like a question for me growing up, especially going into high school, where I think you sort of saw maybe some kids choosing one sport. For me to ever stop playing another sport, it was always, winter was hockey, fall was football, and spring and summer was baseball. And that was super important to me just because I always felt that you put yourself in different competitive environments playing different sports. I learned so much from being in a huddle Friday night in football to being on a power play in hockey to being in the box. You can take things from different sports and apply them to different ones. I talk to kids now, and a 12-year-old tells me he's a PO, and I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me. I can't wrap my head around that because I really do credit the majority of my success to playing multiple sports. And Trezza, when I got to BC, that was the first year I had just played baseball. I knew nothing about the game of baseball. I really knew nothing. But yeah, I always thought my advantage over some of the other players was that, when the lights turned on and the game started, I thought I had this competitive advantage over them just because I craved that environment. I loved being in that environment. A lot of the stuff I do today is really credited to playing multiple sports when I was in high school.
Was there a moment in your youth sporting career where it became clear to you that baseball was the thing you could actually build, a career around, and the other sports weren't the main ones?
Probably not until I got to BC, honestly. I committed to BC after my freshman year of high school for baseball, which was pretty early at the time. BC was my only baseball offer, but after my junior year, I got offered to play football at BC, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to go do that. I'm going to play both. This is awesome. This is what I want to do.
Sal had committed early to Boston College on a football scholarship, But playing baseball at that same level was quickly becoming a real option. A talented multi-sport athlete through and through, he had the attention of both coaching staffs. But it was a conversation with the head baseball coach at BC, Mike Gambino, that changed everything, convincing Sal he just might have what it takes to make it big in baseball.
I had to have a heart-to-heart with Coach Gambino, and he was really the first person in the coaching staff at BC at the time, along with Trez, that said, hey, I think you might have a future beyond college. And I really had to kind of go out and trust him. I did, thankfully. And I wouldn't say it was till after my freshman year of college, though, that first season where I was like, okay, maybe I can play baseball after college.
In New England, summer collegiate leagues are a big part of the baseball culture, with several strong options for up-and-coming players. Before Sal even set foot on campus, the coaching staff at BC helped him get a spot in one of those leagues, giving him an early shot to test himself against college-level competition.
I really crushed it that summer, and I remember some scouts came up to me and were like, hey, we'd love to sign you. And I was so confused because, I'd won baseball offer, and then all of a sudden I'd had a couple good weeks in the summer league, and some scouts were like, hey, then I had to kind of revisit that. And I was like, talking to my coaches at BC, and there was never really a question that I was ever going to sign. Like I was for sure going to college, but it still had to have the conversation. But yeah, that was a great first step too, and kind of understanding like, hey, this is maybe something I could do.
Sal settled in fast at BC. He bought in, competed hard. He just had that edge. And this one game still stands out. We were down in Auburn, a top SEC program, and we added them to the schedule last minute that year. It was the 9th inning, 2 outs. We were down 8, and most teams would fold there, but not our team. Then Sal comes up, and well, I'll let him tell the rest of the story. It was crazy. But that game confirmed what we already knew, that he was primed for the big leagues.
We're just passing the bat. Next thing you know, it's 9-6, and I'm on deck. And I remember Dante Baldelli's in front of me. He walks. I get up to the plate. I'm like, all right, well, don't try to hit a homer to tie this thing, but try to hit a homer. I remember getting a cutter or something, kind of spun out and was able to put it over the fence and tied the game. Ended up going to extras, and we won in extras. And Luke Gold hit a home run, and it was awesome. We were ranked at the time too, pretty high. It was great going to an SEC school as well and taking 2 out of 3 from them. But yeah, I had never been a part of something like that before, and I just remember the camaraderie. Everybody out of the bench on every hit were celebrating, and it was just this awesome game. And it was after a season that got cut short where we had only played 2 weeks, so everyone was pent up that next season to get out. We were so excited to play a full season, and man, that was awesome.
That moment in Auburn was electric. But big plays are one thing. Playing baseball full-time was still so new to Sal.
You mentioned Trez specifically. You took a little bit of coaching once you arrived at BC for you to even seriously consider whether there was a professional career for you ahead in baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know what I was doing. I had never played baseball in the fall before. I got to BC and we had fall ball. I'd never done that. It was almost like an overload of baseball, this influx where I was like, wow, I have this much learning where I get, it's basically a season in the fall before spring. But yeah, it was, my freshman year was definitely a little eye-opening and with all that learning. But that was kind of when I realized, might have a future.
Can you talk a little bit more about the role that your parents played in your career? You mentioned that your dad had played football and that your parents really encouraged you and your siblings to play. Did your dad ever coach you, either on your team or even just at home?
Yeah, so my dad was our coach and everything. He played football at Pitt, and I think football is his true passion. So growing up, he was always our football coach. He played baseball, growing up. So he was our baseball coach, football coach, until we got to high school. And then he was like, that's it for me. I'm hands off. I want you guys to have a coach that's not your father and go through what that's being like. It was awesome having him as a coach and also being able to play, on the same team as my brother.
When did technology actually get introduced to you as a part of your game of baseball? Is this something you started using as a kid, or did you not see it till later?
Yeah, I think the first time was at BC. And, I guess for football, right, you watch film, you break down film before the other team, you break down film after your game. But with baseball, it was really nothing. When I got to college, that was the real first time I'd ever been introduced to any sort of technology with maybe percentages. Trez knows we'd have it in the dugout, like especially with relievers. Reliever comes in the game, you can go look at the sheet, has his percentages of pitches thrown in certain counts and stuff like that. And it was hard at first because I didn't know how to use it, right? You're given this information, but it's really up to the player and how they want to use it. Because at first I'd go over there and be like, oh, this guy throws a fastball 90% of the time in 2-1 counts. And you go in and you're hunting fastball and he hangs a curveball and you're like, I completely eliminated off speed from this count. And then you start to learn, okay, instead of saying, I'm only going to see fastball, we're going to anticipate fastball with, okay, if he hangs one, we're still going to be able to pull trigger on it.
During his time at Boston College, Sal really dug into the game, both on and off the field. He asked questions, made adjustments, and just kept finding ways to get better. Over 3 seasons, he hit .345, knocked 27 doubles, swiped 38 bases, and played standout defense in the outfield. In 2021, he earned a spot on the All-ACC first team before everything changed. It was July 11th, 2021, MLB Draft Day. Sal was back home in Lexington, surrounded by family. They were all crowded into the living room, TV on, eyes locked, nerves high.
With the 15th pick in the 2021 MLB Draft, the Milwaukee Brewers select Sal Frelick, Boston College.
The room erupted, hugs, tears, the works. After years of grinding through high school sports, through a COVID-shortened college season, through every adjustment and lesson, Sal had arrived to the big leagues. 15th overall, our first rounder. Just like that, the dream was real.
Let's talk about being in Milwaukee right now and what's going on. Talk about some stuff you're using now and talk about what the tech is in Milwaukee and how you guys are using it on a daily basis to kind of aid in how your performance is as an individual player and as a team.
We have everything under the moon with that stuff. I mean, we got guys up in the front office that basically their whole entire job is just, giving scouting reports for defensive positioning for opposing pitchers, and it's great. All this information we can use, and it's just kind of also up to the player, which is also cool. It's not, thrown at you. You have to do this. You have to do this. It's up to the player on how much they want to use. You got guys using everything at their disposal, and you got guys using absolutely nothing. Every time we're in for our pregame meetings for starting pitchers, they have percent usage and counts, what pitches that he's comfortable throwing for strikes when he needs a strike, and all this stuff is so useful as a hitter. These pitchers are getting so good that I think you're kind of crazy not to even just take a glance at some of this stuff. And then on the physical side, I think we have one of the coolest machines that it's really cool. It's called the Traject. It's basically a big screen and has every pitcher that's ever thrown a pitch in the major leagues programmed into it. And the screen shows the pitcher and it'll just pitch like you're in the game. It's actually harder, I think, than when you're in the game. But it's used the most when, if you're on the bench and, you're coming in the game for a righty. We got guys in the cage in the 6th, 7th inning, and they see the guy warming up, basically hitting off him. And then it's like, all right, you're going into pinch hit, and they've already had 2 at-bats off the guy in the cage, and they can go out.
You're saying just before they go into pinch hit, right before that, they're doing a simulation against the pitcher they're about to face.
Simulation, yep. They have a righty and a lefty in the pen. We got our righties, hitting off the lefty, and then our lefties hitting off the righty. And you don't know who's coming in the pen, but it's just to be prepared for, we got a guy back there who has his iPad and will program a sequence. So it's not just spitting out fastballs you choose. You don't know what's coming. You can ask for, hey, I only want fastballs. I only want sliders. Mm-hmm. Most of the guys will go back there and say, pitch to me like you're the pitcher. And the guy on the iPad's back there. I think it's super, super cool. It's also cool if a starter has, weird delivery that maybe you can't simulate from a machine, like Chris Sale's starting, right? And I'm in there and the machine isn't as accurate because, Sale's on the left side of the rubber. He's basically throwing from behind me. I would get in, even if I'm not swinging, but I'll get in off the trajectory and just kind of see a few pitches from that angle. And it's been super helpful. And this has been the first year we had it was last year. So this is the second year we've used it.
Is there still information that you get in an at-bat that just can't be reproduced by the machine? Like stuff you're going to learn only through experience and you're just not going to get any other way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another thing that I learned more so in the big leagues. But I would say if I'm leading off the game, there's nobody on base. That information I get can be trusted pretty much to a T. But then when I get on base in the sixth inning with a guy on second or third, less than 2 outs, like that can all go in the trash because I'm going to get pitched differently, right? And go to, is at the end of the year, what's this guy's ERA? Is he, a free agent next year? There's so much stuff that I've been learning that goes into it with guys on base because, they don't want to give up a run versus when there's nobody on base where how I'm going to get pitched differently. Or am I 10 for my last 20? Am I 0 for my last 20? Are they going to attack me because of that? Or am I going to get pitched around a little bit because I'm swinging a hot bat? So there's so much stuff that goes into it, especially with guys on base, that my approach will change completely, which I'm still learning. But some of the older guys on my team, Rhys Hoskins, Christian Yelich, I go up and watch these guys with runners on base take 2-0 sliders just below the zone, like out of hand. And I'm like, how did you take that? And he's like, well, why would the guy pitch to me, And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And so the approach will definitely change. And I see it the most maybe with runners on base or maybe certain matchups.
There's kind of like a little bit of a chess game going on with the technology. You're learning everything you can about who you're facing, but you're also understanding that they've studied you and they know how you've been doing, and you have to take that into account as well.
Oh, yeah. The whole entire season's a chess match because of how much technology there is. Pitchers are able to grasp so much quicker what the hitter is handling and how to not throw them that. And I think when I was in college, that wasn't a thing. And even in the minors, I would say that wasn't a thing. But now, because to they got people, in other front offices, this is their job. We're isolated so much faster than I'd seen in the past, where to even be from series to series, where one series, you crush it, the next series, a pitch doesn't show up anywhere that you had just seen the previous series. And that's all due to technology.
I think that's the thing that makes it tough, right? If there's one spot you can't execute, right, they're going to hammer that part of the zone until you prove you can, right? And then move on to the
100%.
next thing, right? So I think having all that information, that makes it tough every day going to the ballpark, right? You got to understand how they're going to attack you and what your approach is, right? And adjust maybe pitch to pitch and at bat to at bat. So there's so many games during the year to just continue to learn and continue to get better.
I think it's very beneficial for me, especially. I would say I'm above average for speed and maybe just athleticism, but that doesn't always translate to being a good defender. And that was something coming into BC. I was an infielder in high school, and when I got to college, it was my first time playing outfield. So I was fast. The ball got hit in the air. I was just kind of like a dog out there running after it, and didn't really have good route efficiency and first step quickness. And now in the big leagues, that's something that we can actually track.
First step quickness is all about how fast you react. Route efficiency is all about whether you're moving in the right direction. One gets you where you're going, and the other makes sure you're on the right path. As a coach, I care about both because speed plus efficiency leads to more outs and ultimately more wins.
Let's say a ball hitting the gap is my first step while I'm facing home plate. If it's my first step is directly to my right as that ball's getting hit over my head, then I have to then start to basically banana curl from that first step going towards center back to the right field wall, instead of my first step just being right back to that right field wall. That 1 or 2 steps that I take directly to my right can lead to me not catching the baseball, because then I have to adjust and go back instead of just opening up quick and darting straight back. Even if I have to come in, you rather err on the side of back than shallow, because that'll give you a better chance to catch the ball. So, a lot of the times when I go and lay out for a ball and make the catch, I'll go back and be like, all right, what was the catch percentage on that? Because if it's above 50, I probably didn't need to dive for it, which means my first step was bad, and all that's tracked. So first step, I think, is the biggest thing that I like to look at. And that's some stuff that I work on. We work on that in batting practice off live reads. But at the end of every month, we basically get a report, and it'll show us our first step average, quickness, and stuff like that, which has been great for me, just making sure that my first step is quick, but every single time the ball's hit to me, not taking a play off or stuff like that.
Wow, it's really interesting. What other technology, is there any other stuff that you guys are using that we haven't hit on yet in any other aspect of the game? Maybe it's even in dugout. I know everyone's grabbing iPads as quick as they can to kind of see some stuff.
Base running's big, so it's more for base stealers, but we have actual metrics that tell us how big your lead is, especially when you steal. So a pitcher is 135 and above. That's kind of a guy where I'm like, okay, this is a guy I'm going to try to get a bag on. And 135 meaning his time to home plate, where most of the time stealing on the pitchers, not the catchers. And if a guy's 1-4 to the plate and I get thrown out, I want to go back and look at, okay, what was my lead? And we're able to get that information pretty quick. And if my lead's good, okay, I'll tip my cap to the catcher. But if it's not, then I can say that's on me. My lead wasn't big enough. It wasn't 11 feet. I was at 10 and a half. And that split second and lead distance is the reason I got thrown out. And then, in the weight room too, we use a lot of technology. We have force plates, which we go in and jump. And we also do isometric pulls. So basically we pull a bar. You can't lift it off the ground because it's chained into the ground, but it'll judge how hard you're pulling it via force. And we do that once a month. And they're not looking for you to go up in all of those categories, but the whole idea is, because the season's so long, is they don't want you going down. So the off season, I use the same force plates and I want to go up in all my metrics. That's the time to get stronger. That's the time to get faster. During the season, that's where you want to maintain strength because it's hard to get stronger. You just don't want to go down.
At the highest level, there's no shortage of tools or data. But with so much information flying around, it can be easy to lose sight of what actually matters. For Sal, the turning point came when he stopped trying to use everything and started figuring out what actually worked for him.
It took me till, we have all this information, this is great, me getting it and saying, I'm not using this right, to really understand the type of player I am and how I want to use it, right? I'm not hitting 40 homers a year where I might want to be sitting a pitch. And those guys love knowing that because they're fine taking a curveball and a 2-1 count because they know that if they get the fastball, they can hit over the fence. For me, it's like, I can't hit a curveball sitting a curveball. I have to be still on the fastball to then identify the curveball, and that's how I hit off speed. So I had to understand that for me as a player, work with my coaches, and then develop a plan. And so that's when I got to, telling Murph, saying, hey, change-ups were hard for me in college. Does he have one? Is it good? Because that's something I would maybe want to know if there's a count where he throws it. But if not, okay, I'm good otherwise, whether it's pitches, whether it's reloads, other than that, I'm good.
A lot of the tech you mentioned kind of involved going back and looking at data around your own plays and, looking for insights. Was my first step, or how big was my leadoff? Is that something you do for every single game? Like, how many plays do you look at? Do you set aside time after every game to do this kind of video review?
I would say so. Hitting is more game to game, maybe more series to series for me. There's guys on my team that after every single game go in and review their at-bats. I do not do that. I think for me personally, most guys too, you can kind of get in a little bit of a trap doing that every single game and not just go up to the plate and competing. If I was doing that, I'd go up to the plate worried about my mechanics or maybe what he's throwing and kind of take away from my competitive edge. So I say on the offensive side, it's more so series to series. I'll go look at that. If you're doing good at the plate, you're not doing any of that. And then, defensively, I would say we get a report once a month, which I think is plenty. Basically, our good plays, our bad plays, and you can kind of review that once a month.
I know you just talked about it's not an everyday thing, but do you look at the iPad in game, like after at bats, just to see stuff?
Yeah, I used to. I would say my first year, I'd get out, run right to the iPad and see what went wrong. And again, kind of got in a bad habit of doing that. So this year, I would say I haven't not gone to the iPad once. It's just, I like to stay away from them. I think you can kind of get in trouble there. Guys do. Guys love going to it. It helps guys. But again, for me personally, I can kind of find myself getting into trouble, running to it after every at bat.
Yeah, I think everyone's different. I think you've hit on that, right? It's just like, can you go down a wormhole with the technology and it kind of mess you up? Or have you learned what you seem to have, right? Like know just what the right balance is. And I'm sure that'll evolve, as more technology comes out. But I think that's an important thing. When you were younger, I know we talked about this a little bit, but did your teams use GameChanger? Were you familiar with it? How much did you guys use it in high school and travel ball and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was the only thing I think we were able to use in travel ball for following live stats or at the game. That we had basically, I think, a designated parent who was the GameChanger parent, and they would, if my dad or mom were at my brother or sister's game and weren't able to be at mine, they would be able to follow on the app watching my game because someone was, inputting the stats and updating the score of the game. So my parents loved it, and it was something that allowed them to be at one of my siblings' games, but still be able to follow mine. So, but now I know they have the video. I think maybe some fields have cameras up, but there's some, when I go to the field today, there'll be a staff member or something watching their kids play on their phone, which I think is awesome. And just allowing for people to be not at their kids' games to be able to watch them play. And it's been really cool.
You see anyone in the clubhouse using it to watch their kids when you guys are away?
Yeah, like some of our staff, like if it's a coach or somebody in the front office, they'll just have it on their phone and they'll be like, oh, I'm watching my kid's game. He's in a tournament right now or something like that. I can't be there, but I can watch him, which is really cool.
Sal made it to the top by constantly learning and adapting, but it hasn't happened in a vacuum. The teams he's been a part of and the cultures they've built have shaped the way he plays, prepares, and shows up every day. As someone who's seen Sal's journey up close, Alex Trezza wanted to dig into that.
Talk about what culture means to a ball club and how does that culture kind of weave into that fabric and get you ultimately to a World Series, but, make the team really good throughout the entire season.
Yeah. And I think that's another point of why I liked playing multiple sports is because in high school, that was something I learned how to build a culture within your team, because it's not building the same culture from the hockey team to the baseball team to the football team. It's going into the locker room on day one, seeing the type of guys you have, the type of players you have, and building the culture around that. I know the 10 guys that I went into in my freshman year were all still best of friends. And it's because of what the coaches built before we even got there, of what it means to be, a bird baller. And that's different than what it means to be a Milwaukee Brewer. It's different culture. It's not the same. It translates to the big leagues as well. Like I'm in a small market team where we don't just go out and sign guys like, you see the Dodgers do, you see the Mets do. We're homegrown. We have to draft. And we draft specifically to Brewer culture. And that's guys who can play defense, guys who understand base running, guys who can bunt. Like this is what our culture is. And the guys we sign, if we do sign them, the guys we draft all fit that mold. When we show up every day in the clubhouse, we understand like this is how we're going to play and this is how we're going to win baseball games. It's not going to go out by striking out 12 times a game, but we might hit 5 homers. Like that's just not our culture. So I think culture is so important, and you can see that. It's not just in the big leagues. It's not just in college. You can see that type of stuff happen in high school because I saw it happen with my football teams and baseball teams and stuff like that, and having great upperclassmen take over that role of building that culture.
A strong team culture only works if the people inside it bring it to life day in, day out. And that starts with being the kind of teammate who shows up for others. But what does that actually look like?
One is just being encouraging, and 2 is just having accountability, which kind of might seem like they're opposites, but you want to have somebody who, when you're going bad, you have an older guy who can kind of pick you up and be encouraging and say, hey man, you're doing great. You're doing great. You're right there. Or you're about to break out. Just keep doing exactly what you're doing. And then you want to have the other guy who, I really learned this at BC, where the guy might be an all-star, but if he doesn't run out a ball at first base, that's a really bad example for a young guy. Someone needs to get on him. That's being a good teammate, is grabbing the guy, and might have to be stern, but making sure that he understands he messed up, why he messed up, and he shouldn't do it again. So both sides of it.
Sal, is there a piece of advice that you would offer to a young athlete or even their parent who wants to elevate their baseball game?
Yeah, and we've touched on it a ton, and I don't want to be redundant with it, but I do firmly believe that playing multiple sports, especially at a young age, is the number one thing that a parent can do to enhance their son or daughter's ability in a specific sport, not just to elevate their play, but as Trez mentioned earlier, that's what college coaches look for. Like every scout that I talked to, the number one thing they brought up with me was how they loved that I played multiple sports. It's playing multiple sports, being coachable, being a good teammate, like stuff like that, going out and just competing. That's how you turn heads, because for me, it was, all right, I might have 3 singles in a game, but I'm going to go steal a base. I'm going to go make a diving catch. I might beat out a ground ball to the second baseman. Like that's how I was going to get recruited. I wasn't going to go to a showcase and hit 20 homers during batting practice and throw 93 from the outfield because I couldn't do that. I physically wasn't able to. And most aren't. You develop that later once you grow into your body, once you get bigger. So I would say if that's your, I was 5'8", 150 pounds my freshman year of college. Like that's
you're still 5'8" and 150 pounds.
I'm like 5'8", 180 now, but it's just like once you get to college and after that is when I think you grow into your body. So it's more important to focus on those other things when you're early in your baseball career.
Getting to the big leagues takes talent, no doubt, but it also takes support, self-awareness, and the willingness to keep learning, year after year, level after level. And that journey doesn't start under the lights. It starts on the sidelines, in the cages, the moments spent reviewing tape or encouraging a teammate. As we've heard from Sal, technology can sharpen those moments. It can help a player find their edge or help a parent follow along from the other side of the country. But the tools only matter if you know how to use them. And Sal's story is proof that growth comes from knowing who you are, trusting the process, and surrounding yourself with the right people. This has been Athletic Intelligence from GameChanger. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow, rate, and share it. I hope you'll join us next time as we uncover the tech that's shaping the game.